Hello and welcome to Music Rewind, a podcast where we look to tell the stories behind our favorite albums. I'm your host, Steve Epley, and in each episode, we invite a guest on to tell us about their favorite music album, how they discovered it, and what makes it special to them. Joining me tonight is rock musician Karkar. Born in Canada, raised in Dubai, and educated in all the great pop punk of the 2000s. He debuted his first single in 2021, and many more since then. Welcome, Karkar, and thank you for being on the show.
Wow, thank you. I've never had that introduction before. That sounded great. Making me sound good. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, man.
I already listened to some of your music. It sounds great. So
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, it's great stuff.
Awesome.
Okay. Let's jump right into this. Karkar, what album did you bring to the table and what makes it special to you?
So today I brought in American Idiot by Green Day. As I'm sure a lot of people will know this album, but I mean, it was a massive influence. It's probably the sole reason why I decided to go through this career. I mean, the first song I heard was their single American Idiot. And at the time, I think I was like 5 years old or something like that, 5 or 6 years old. And
You're old already.
I'm feeling old. You have no idea.
I was 24 when this came out, by the way. So just throwing that out.
Cool. Age is just a number. I'm learning that now. I don't know. I'm only 25 and I feel old. And I'm like,
No, this is great because it's how you discovered it, which is completely different to how I.
yes.
So
yeah.
that's going to come into play. So go ahead, continue.
Yeah. It's
Please
interesting
do.
how stuff works like that. But yeah, no, I was 5 or 6 and American Idiot, the single came out and I thought it was like, for some reason, when you're young, you're inexperienced, you don't know how things work. So I thought this band made this one song and it was the only song they ever made. It's the only song they ever released. And so I heard it and I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. I think I was in the car, maybe listening to the radio. This was when I was in Dubai still. And then, so I was hooked on that one song. I was like, oh my God, this is great. Amazing. And then I was watching MTV some other day, another week or something, back when MTV was a thing and
The
you saw
glory
all the
days,
music,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
the greatest days. And you saw the music videos and all that stuff. It was so awesome to watch. And the same band came on and it was Holiday. And my mind was like blown. My mind was blown. Like I said, I didn't know they made multiple songs. So I was like, oh my God, they made another one. No way. And I was freaking out. And it was just as good, maybe even better, controversial argument there, but it was amazing. And then I figured out, it was like, oh, they make albums. They have all these past albums that they've already made. But this album really stuck out with me. And I just listened to it. And it was I think if I were to describe it in my world today, it would be like everything I picture in what music should be for what I want to portray as well. I think it's just how they use the raw instruments and it sounds so like intense and epic and so many raw emotions up and down. So I was just so driven by that. So that was what got me to the music side of it. But what really made me want to perform, which is honestly, I'm realizing this about myself, but I feel like I love the performance more than I do the music, which is weird, but I love being on stage and I love just rocking out and whatever. So I watched Bullet in a Bible. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
Is that the documentary of this album?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
It
saw
was a
bits and
documentary. Yeah. And it was a documentary / like live album.
The recording of, the making of?
No, it was a gig in Milton Keynes. And they filmed the show, and it was this show in a field. And then in between songs, it was like documentary style.
I gotcha.
But yeah, so watching Billy Joe Armstrong on stage and his energy and the ability to be like such an outstanding frontman, I was like, I want to do that. I want to be him. I want to be like that guy. So watching that and combined with that album, it was the greatest thing that was the first most amazing, mind-blowing experience I experienced as a human being.
So
like
did you go from there and say, Mom, Dad, I want a guitar? And
honestly, I was never very vocal about the things that I loved. I've never really vocalized it at all. I played hockey growing up and my mom thought Like she called me the jock. Like I was the sports guy in the family. My brother is a musician, and he was always like all about it and vocal about it. So my parents knew, okay, this guy's gonna be the musician. This guy, for me, I was gonna be the sports guy. But inside, I always wanted to be on stage and just like rock out like Billy Joe Armstrong. It's just something I've never shared before, or at least when I was a kid. But it was, I stole my brother's guitar or something, and I was like pretending to play it like I knew what I was playing and like jamming out to American Idiot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When did you get to start down the path as a musician? What age?
It was pretty late. I always played like drums and guitar and bass for fun. I would only play to songs that I loved, like American Idiot, and then there would be some Blink-182 stuff, some 41, Fall Out Boy. I just liked playing 2 songs. I never really took the leap until I was about 16. Like you hear all these artists who grew up since they were 4 or 5, like writing their own stuff. I didn't start writing until I was at least 16, or like my first year in university. So I was 17, probably 17, 18. I never, for some reason, didn't take the leap. And I was playing a lot of hockey at the time too. Like I wasn't anything crazy, nothing good. I was only in single A, but if people know what that means, it's like the lowest level of rep, which is competitive, lowest level of competitive hockey.
Paid?
No, I was a kid. It was just, we were still paying, but I was part of this league, and it was a competitive league, and you had to make the team, and it wasn't just, not just go out and have fun.
Okay. I got you now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was doing a lot of hockey growing up, and then I quit hockey at the end of grade 12, so going into university. And then university came along, and I actually bought my own first guitar, and that's when I started my music career. And it was mainly just guitar. I would solo a lot and I would post on Instagram and write solos over songs that already exist. Yeah.
So when were you able to get your hands on the full album and give it a full listen?
American Idiot?
Yeah.
Oh, man. It was sometime around whenever it released. I don't remember exactly when, but because I was so obsessed with American Idiot and Holiday when I first heard those. My parents were very supportive, and they saw that I enjoyed it and stuff. So I think they got it for me, or even my brother, because we both loved it.
Well, as a comparison, just giving my daughter a ride to camp this summer every day. And so for the past, couple weeks, I've been diving deep into this album. So she's heard a lot of American Idiot.
Okay.
And she's 7.
Okay. Yeah.
So no clue about what the lyrics are. No clue about the punk rock opera, the story, none of that. I'm turning it down at certain areas and turning it up. But she's loving it. And then there'll be a quiet moment and she'll be like, Dad, I think this might be my favorite song now. I was like,
yeah. Oh my God. It's the best. It's the best.
So it's very catchy punk music that I will say Green Day at their best there as far as creating that sound. I grew up on Dookie. When Dookie came out, I was in high school, and that was everywhere. And it was a wonderful time to be in high school with that genre and that just great legacy of music there. You had Dookie, you had Nevermind, you had 10 and Versus. Oh man, music was phenomenal in high school. Yeah. But right there in the middle of it was When I Come Around and Longview, and obviously Basket Case was everywhere. A bit of a lull after that for the Green Day, just got lost in the shuffle. I enjoyed Insomniac. And then American Idiot, and this is just turning into to my opinion for a moment, really turned me off when it came out.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
So I'm a veteran. I'm a soldier. In 2004, I was literally in Iraq when this came out.
Okay.
So this came across as very anti everything that I was doing.
Yeah.
And it felt very personal. So it just completely turned me off. I recognize that Holiday and American Idiot, great tunes. Really liked Boulevard of Broken Dreams and When September Ends, the hits that I hear, but I never gave the album a chance.
Right.
I just wrote it off. Screw those guys.
Yeah.
The Simpsons joke, the Simpsons movie where they're, please, we'd like to take a moment to talk about our causes and boo. I was one of those guys.
Yeah.
I still feel that way. And I will be honest, I'm not a fan of Holiday. That song
fair enough,
just makes me angry. However,
Yeah.
past couple weeks, and say I give and this, how that was 25 years ago.
Okay.
This was a really good concept album.
Hmm.
I appreciate the story and the movements, the recurring themes. I'm a theater family. My son does touring theater, and I didn't get to see this on Broadway, which I would have liked to, having seen several of those videos now. But
Yeah.
I do have a new appreciation for the album as a whole.
Yeah, I understand that. And I can respect that for sure. I think I agree, man. Throwing in, not just making music, but throwing in a story and connecting it all some way or another just makes it even more. I don't think people understand that this makes music more personable. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't think you would think that when you're hearing this, oh, like this is so personable or whatever. It's just, it's making you feel a way you didn't know you wanted to feel, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And to be able to create a concept album that works and is successful, one of the most difficult things in all of music.
For sure.
This album is mentioned in the pantheon of The Wall, Quadrophenia, Tommy, and Welcome to the Black Parade. Some of the best concept albums out there. And I think it deserves it. It does deserve to be there. It's really a solid story. And I saw one review when I was reading it. It was the last great punk album before pop punk took over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can agree with that.
Yeah. I have to agree with that. Yeah. It just, thinking about it makes me happy. I know it might not for you, but I just love, it's just such a wonderful piece of art. Like,
my young idiot view, American idiot view, pun intended, was that it was a bunch of songs that were just anti everything America's doing right now. Like, I didn't know that Jesus of Suburbia was a 9-minute epic, and then Homecoming, another 9-minute epic. That's really cool. That's hard to write.
Awesome. Yes. Yes.
It's hard to write, hard to make it work, and then to do it all live. Very cool.
Yeah. It's awesome. And it makes me, I really want to do that kind of thing. And I don't think I'm at that point in my career where I'm able to do it, at least to reach the standard. Obviously not, but the standard that they set. It's incredible to pull that off. And I really want to try to do that. And I'm genuinely, it's a fear of mine to go ahead and try to not mimic Jesus of Suburbia and Homecoming and stuff like that, but to try to take that structure of a song and the epicness of that song and try to recreate that in my vision. But I don't know. It's tough, but it's something I want to try to do. And it's so motivating for me.
Think about it, a lot of the great concept albums came mid to late in those artists' career.
Right.
The Wall, obviously very late in Pink Floyd. Tommy was 69. Quadrophenia was like 3 albums later. But they had matured as songwriters. And they kind of had the ability to shape those thoughts and those visions into a structure. I've listened to concept albums that make no sense. This is terrible. There's no themes. It's just because the songs have the same character. That doesn't mean you got to have the themes in there.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. But even another issue that I think a lot about the audience side nowadays, do you think people would, even if a song is that good, like Bohemian Rhapsody, if you send out a 6-minute song, 8-minute song, 9-minute song, are people going to, not that you have to make music for other people to get to at least to where I want to be in performing in front of a lot of people. I just want to entertain. Are people going to listen to that? You know what I mean? So that's like another.
Well, it could be. It's all about the audience imprint
in today's world. Yeah.
Think about it. This album talks about the main character, Jesus of Suburbia, is pretty much the quintessential pop punk kid.
Yeah.
So he's talking to his audience. Anyone in that people at a Green Day concert can see themselves in that particular character. I'm not saying that they all had this, but the character itself has the stereotypical rough, broken home. Let's dull it all with some drugs and noise and mischief. Enter the girl. That goes badly. Things fall apart. And then now I have to enter society. I wonder what happened to her. That's the story in a nutshell. Yeah. And every one of those audience members could be like, that is me or that could be me. Yes.
It's personable.
Exactly.
It's very relatable. Yeah. So it's impressive. It's impressive.
I was curious because when I was in my reading, I saw that I already knew that became a Broadway musical, the whole show. And we'll get to the tracks, but at one point he creates an alternate identity and he's now Saint Jimmy.
Right.
and Jesus of Suburbia. He's dual
Yeah.
personality sort of thing. And on Broadway for a short run, Billy Joe Armstrong actually played St. Jimmy on stage.
Right.
I was like, that had to have been a disaster. There's no way he's going to be able to do Broadway theater. And I watched it, man, he crushed it.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was living that role and he was having a blast. You could tell.
Yeah. See, I never got to see it. I've seen clips on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, but I never got to see it. And that's something I would have loved to see live, especially.
Yeah.
I actually don't even know if the full thing's on YouTube or
The full
if you can
show's
buy
on
it or something.
The full show's available, but I don't think it's with his cameo.
Right. I think it goes under the bridge. This guy, I think he's a really good musician and he's a good singer too. And he's able to express very well and through performing. And I don't think people might realize that. And it's really cool to see.
Are you still following Green Day to this day?
I follow them, yes. I'm not as into them as I was. I would like I know they're coming to Toronto like either this month or next month or something. I'd go if the tickets were so expensive. Yeah. And I've been before and I would see them again. They're from not just a Green Day fan perspective, just I can appreciate the time and effort that went into building the set and to putting the energy that they do into it and see them perform. It's the way he controls the crowd and stuff. And it's just, he's so good at what he does. It's impressive.
I never got a chance to see them live either.
It's a good show. Yeah. It's a good show. Even if you don't like their music, I guess it'll be a big part of it, but he puts on a good show and he's very entertaining to watch. Yeah.
I'd like to hear the original Cigarettes and Valentines album that got stolen.
Yeah.
So for any listeners out there, when they started the recording sessions, they had tracks for an album going to be called Cigarettes and Valentine. The demos and the masters were stolen, so they had to start from scratch. I'd love to hear those tracks.
Things happen for a reason. I believe in that.
True.
That album, what if that album was complete? Just not good.
Just crap.
Yeah. Who knows? But that's just one of the mysteries in life. At least you can look at this album we have and just look at it that way and you can appreciate it more because they don't have any other album like this one. They're not going to make another album like this one. So it's nice to know that we have this and it's.
Well, walk me through the album, how you listen to it. It can go track by track or you can bounce around. So how do you listen to this?
Depends. Like sometimes it just depends on mood I'm in really. Usually if I'm like thinking American Idiot, I will listen it in order from American Idiot down all the way to What's Her Name. Amazing track, underrated as well, I think. So good. But I'll listen to the whole thing. But if I have my favorites and I want to listen to pieces of the album, Jesus of Suburbia is probably my
Yeah, because I was like, 9 minutes. This is going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
I really thought it was, but it was really good. Yeah, there's a lot of good poetry in there. I had to listen to it with the lyrics up. So it's a lot of the lyrics I can't understand really until you hear it when you're reading.
He's one of those singers I find. You gotta read the lyrics.
Like he's good Bible of the none of the above, fall in love and fall in debt. These are great lines. They really are.
I don't get it. It's so good. But yeah, no, Jesus of Suburbia is definitely my favorite Green Day song for sure. I will listen to that all the way through. I won't, if let's say I'm listening to it in the car and I get to wherever I'm at, I won't turn off the car until the song's over. It's that kind of song for me. So I'll do that. American Idiot, man, I'm not going to lie. I listened to that song when I was young, like over and over again. So I'm like a little bit fatigued from that song. So it's still one of my favorites, but I'll put Holiday above that. That, honestly, I went through a phase where I was like, Holiday is not that good for some reason. And then I listened to it again after a while, and I was like, wow, it is a pretty good song. So that's there.
I like the way Jesus of Suburbia ends with the From Dearly Beloved section to the Tales of Another Broken Home. Yeah. Because that Broken Home section is actually, you got Ring of Fire from Johnny Cash melody going on. I love that kind of
It's one of the masterpieces of music in my perspective. And that's a big thing to say, but I think it's just everything fits. So it's 9 minutes long, which is like a proper piece of music. You know what I mean? Like it's not just a 2-minute, 30-second.
It's a mini story in the big story.
Yes. And it's a long mini story. Like it's pretty good.
The origin story.
Yeah. But yeah, Jesus of Suburbia, American Idiot, Holiday, what's her name? Letter Bomb. Letter Bomb is so emotional. There's something about that song. I remember me and my old buddy from university, he was also really into this album. And we were listening, we were just like drinking and having a good time and whatever university kids would do. And we were listening to Letter Bomb, and he looks at me and he's like, dude, you have no idea how this song makes me feel. And I'm like, I don't, but I do, because it makes me feel that way too. And he's like, no, you don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I do get it. So that song, there's something about it it's just so emotional. The chorus is big and
it's harsh.
Yeah.
The songs that precede it, you've got She's a Rebel and Extraordinary Girl, where he's just, I met this girl, she's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
She's embodies everything of this movement that he's living, the anti-establishment punk world. But the character is completely insecure. But the letter bomb is the letter from her to him saying, nobody likes you. Everybody hates you. And they're all out having fun.
It's so
without
emotional.
You.
It's so
to hear that as a young 20-year-old in that world, when you're that insecure to the point where you have an alternate identity called Saint Jimmy that is the confident, reckless side, and you're the insecure wuss. To hear your girl tell you that, oh man, that's harsh.
Yeah, for sure. And then again, it's relatable again. It's so relatable. I just went through a breakup a year ago too. Like it's breakup. I'm not that it was the same kind of idea, but just that knife into the chest. Like this hurts. This person did this to me and I trusted them and whatever. And they're making me feel like this. I love them and they make me feel like it's rough. It's hard, but so you can connect with it.
And I love the way that those lines, the nobody likes you, everyone left you, that now comes back as in Homecoming, the other 9-minute epic. You hear those words over and over again in a sung chorus in the background. It's always beating in the back of his head. You feel bad for the guy.
It's incredible. It's incredible. It's just one of those where it's like, I've been there before. It's so good. It's so good. And it just validates how you feel. You know, and it makes you feel heard, even though you're not doing the talking. You can relate to this and you can be, and I could feel a little bit of freedom because someone else feels this. And it's not just me. This is diving into the mental health side or the dark times that you have to go through in life, which everyone goes through. So it's a good little escape.
I didn't read anywhere if this is true, but there's a heavy Quadrophenia influence on this, because I don't know if you're familiar with that album, concept album, but it's the same thing in the 60s where there's a kid in England and he's part of this movement with the mods and he's insecure. He creates 4 alternate identities, hence the Quadrophenia. Yeah. And there's the girl and it all explodes, it all falls apart, and it ends very badly. This one has a little bit of a happier ending, I think. But I won't say a happier ending, but this has a bit more of a livable ending. Yeah. But I can hear and I can feel it within the story. Musically, no. Musically has nothing to do with Quadrophenia. Story-wise, I feel some of the same beats there, so that's some good inspiration there.
Yeah, I'm very driven by, honestly, the music that's the biggest thing for me. Like, to connect that to bring out the emotion of what you're trying to say through the music and make it like, there's sometimes you can't put things into words, and for you to make a piece of art and help me, I'm trying to think of how to say this, but it's just you just understand what or it makes you feel as the listener that this person who did it understands what I'm going through, and it's just, it helps.
And that's honestly the essence of punk music in itself.
Yes, for sure.
It may sound like loud noise to a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
But to the fans and to the diehards, it is very emotional. That music, not necessarily the words, but that music is a very audible representation of the angst and the rage and the sadness, all encapsulates into one for those fans.
Yeah. And so that's what I've learned from American Idiot. It's just, that album was, I guess, my eye-opening learning experience where I get the feelings here. I get the feelings. So that's what I'm trying to do with my music. I want to try to get my feelings or how I'm feeling through my music and into the world. And I just want to share.
Like one of the turning points of the album for me was tracks 5 and 6. So you've got Are We the Waiting? It's almost like a chant with the crowd. Are we the waiting? That they don't really know what's going on, what's happening. They're lost, they're listless. And then the transition to St. Jimmy just comes in hard. I love that. That's where the album kicked off just awesome to me.
It's so cool. It's such a good transition. Yeah, I love that. I love that. It feels that way live as well. When you see them, it feels what you just said about the Are We Waiting? It feels that way live. I'm very musically, like, I analyze things in a production kind of way. Like, even when I listen to music now, I listen to how it's produced and what's going on. And I'm not just a listener, which kind of sucks sometimes. It's like, you want to sit and enjoy it. But no, when I saw Green Day and they're doing this, I'm like, I'm reading what they're doing, and they're extending that chant at the end of the song. They're extending it for another few rounds. And it's like, we're waiting and we know something's coming. We know on the album, St. Jimmy's next. So that's probably what's going to happen, but they're keeping us waiting. And it's just stretching that out. And it's so cool. So that's just adds on to the love.
I can see that would be the perfect point of suspense and tension there. When's it going to drop?
Yeah,
when's it
exactly.
Gonna drop?
So yeah, to pull that from the album and going from a like a serious, like, you're going through something, you're dealing with something, to like also bringing it live, and it's more exciting that way, and it's a different context and stuff. It's cool. It's cool. I just love how they manipulated music to do that.
Yeah, and they do it very well within the flow of the album, going from St. Jimmy, then they drop it straight down to Give Me Novocaine. Yeah, it's like outside rage, and then back to inside insecurity, and just like slower. Okay, dull the pain for me. It flows very well.
No, for sure. For sure.
Each album I do, I'll take a couple of takeaway tracks. So I just want to throw my takeaway tracks at you as far as my favorites out of here.
Yeah.
Easily St. Jimmy.
Yeah.
Loved that one. Letter Bomb, which we already talked about. Right. And then What's Her Name?
The lyrics right now, just so we can go through it.
It's a great epilogue.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. And now that I think about it, it has the entire album into one, where in terms of how the dynamics of the song, it's loud at some points and it's quiet, and then it's loud again and it's quiet. as
It
much
had
as
a
I can
very
remember it.
80s The Cars feel to me,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
enjoyed that.
It was so awesome. And
Yeah. Yeah, after everything comes crashing down in the previous track, which is the other 9-minute epic Homecoming, he goes through several crashing down and he ends up just going home again
yeah.
to his little town in
Yeah.
suburbia. And then it doesn't say how long has passed, but he's
Mhm.
just, the whole point of What's Her Name is what happened to What's Her Name. He's still pining for
Yeah.
the girl. He can't
Yeah.
remember. He can remember her face, but he can't even remember her name.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
I love that. Again, it's so relatable. Every time we break down a song and we're talking about how, what's her name? Oh yeah, that girl, like that. It
Mhm.
brings me to a place where I had a crush in high school, for example. I'm like, now I think about her face, I'm like, what? So this. A lot of people in music in general, not just this album. And it's I don't know. It's just I'm so drawn to it. And like I
It's
said,
a
it's validating. It's so
yeah,
true.
it's a
Like,
it's a
that's
fitting
true.
ending for the album regarding the climax, which is Homecoming.
Yeah. Regarding
And
the
then
story, yeah.
and then a good ending to the album that it's got some highs and lows rock wise, but it just doesn't leave you wanting more, and that's a good thing. It's a
Mhm.
solid ending. You know, some albums you're like, oh, that was the last track. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Or and vice versa. I want more, or this one has a solid
Yeah.
ending, closure.
Mhm.
You feel bad for the kid.
Yeah. It's totally, it feels like closing a book, and that was a good book.
Yeah, that's a good way, perfect way to put it.
Yeah, it totally feels that way. And it's a bittersweet ending too.
Right.
Forgetting you, but not the time. Like, it's sad but sweet. It's so good. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know how to put it into words. They just nailed it in a way that just hit me so hard. When I was younger, I wasn't listening to the story and whatever. As you grow up and stuff, and you're listening to these lyrics, I didn't pay attention to lyrics till I was maybe like till I started really taking music seriously. So I was like 16 or something, 16, 17. And I started listening to lyrics, and that completely changed the way I look at the music now. It makes even more sense, and I grew up on this album, and then when I was going through my years of playing hockey and I moved to Canada and whatever, I wasn't taking music as seriously. I wasn't paying attention to the music I loved as much. And then once I got out of that world and really getting into it and deeper into music, it just turned me back onto the album again. And it was like I was a kid again. Listening to the lyrics and the story and the songwriting it's incredible. It's a really good songwriting, and it's from a songwriter perspective. It's just how do you do that? It's good. It's really good.
I didn't even realize it, but this is actually the 20-year anniversary of American
Yes.
Idiot.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I just happened to look at the date, and this episode will come out near September. How has your perception of the album or your feel of the album changed over 20 years? Because you've got from when you were 5, you had it as a teenager. Now you've got it as a musician.
Yeah.
Do you look at the album differently? Has it evolved with you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like I said, growing up, you experience different things. You go through things, you go through hardships, you go through whatever it is life is throwing at you, and you got to deal with it one way or another. But when I was a kid, when I was 5 years old, I was just listening to the music and just getting the dopamine from the music, and it's just so energetic and it's so loud, and I want to jump around and sing at the top of my lungs. That was my perspective on the album when I was a kid. Teenager, like I said, I didn't listen to it as much. It was still my favorite album and stuff, but I didn't listen to it as much. And it was just like, I think looking back, I was a bit of an angsty teenager. And for some reason, I didn't really turn to music for any, like if I was alone in my room or something, I wasn't listening to music. I wasn't even playing guitar. I would just sit on the couch and be lazy instead. Which I honestly probably should have taken it more seriously when I was a kid, because I could, if I learned what I learned when I was older and started listening to the lyrics, and that's when my perspective really changed. And it's okay, the music and the lyrics are tying in here, the story and how it's an opera album and it's a concept album and how it's tying together. It just made me want to make music. It made me want to express those feelings that you can't express through just talking about it, and making a story and creating a fictional world that could be very realistic. It was inspiring to me, and I just wanted to make it. My perspective on the album, when I hit 17, that age, it was amazing. It turned my life around pretty much and really got me into the music making. And I still have the same outlook on the album. My perspective, I don't think, has really changed. I relate more so with some of the songs, like we talked about Letter Bomb. Like, it wasn't the exact same situation or circumstance, but you go through a heartbreak every couple of times when you're growing up, so you can relate to just either feeling backstabbed or whatever it might be. It's just a relatable thing. And we talked about how harsh it was, that and they brought out that emotion through the music. It was such a powerful song for me and my buddy, like I mentioned earlier.
What you described earlier was literally the beginning of Jesus of Suburbia, with get my television fix sitting on my crucifix, which is sitting on the couch, your arms up, and literally. And a living room on a private room. It's just, that's where it's just funny that you described the exact beginning of that song.
So now you get why I keep saying it's so relatable.
Yeah,
like it's just
absolutely
who I was living that life subconsciously, which is weird.
Well, to move off of that, I got a question for you. So American Idiot made the top of your list. What 100%. Was on your short list? What are 3 to 5 albums that you could have brought to the table?
Okay, so they're probably on my wall, actually. Here. So I have American Idiot.
Yeah.
So this album, this is Mika. You can't really see it. It's Mika. What's the album called? Life in Cartoon Motion. It's totally not punk rock. I don't even know what you would call it, but it's just like piano, orchestras. Okay. My mom actually put me on this album, and I just grew up with it, and I thought it was just musically, I didn't pay attention to the lyrics. I know there's some meaning there's some good storytelling in some of the songs.
Is that Mika?
Mika, yeah.
Okay.
It really good. I haven't listened to any other pieces of music that this guy has released. Like, it's just that album, and I think that came out in 2007. So that's a good that I love. These are my A+ albums. I'll call them A+ because like I can listen to each song, no skippables. American Idiot, Mika, Nightmare by Avenged Sevenfold.
Okay.
I'm a decent Avenged Sevenfold fan. That album.
There's a listener who's interested in doing that album.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic album. A+, every single song hits so hard. And this was actually the last album I think their drummer wrote before he died, I believe. Oh. Their drummer was, you know how in every band there's one guy that's just the mastermind. That the drummer was the mastermind of that. Not that the other artists or the other guys aren't.
There's usually a lead creative,
He was that guy. And he made, there's this album and they have a self-titled album, and there's a song called A Little Piece of Heaven. And that song it's 8 minutes long, but it's theater. It's amazing. It's an amazing
8-minute
song.
Metal epic. Nice.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's not like, I'm not the biggest fan of screamo. Like, I'm not hard like that, but I appreciate it. And there's some songs that I do, but I'm not going to go out of my way and listen to a band that's all out screamo.
What casual music listeners won't take to is that the metal bands have some phenomenal guitarists.
Oh yeah.
It's called shredding for a reason, and they can really go to it.
The guitarist in Avenged Sevenfold, if whoever's listening doesn't know, his stage name is Sinister Gates. He's a jazz guitarist. Like
nice.
he grew up learning jazz and classical music, and he just shreds with this band. He just shreds. He's also one of the important pieces of the puzzle. But going back to the drummer, the song Afterlife.
I've listened to the album, but I don't.
It goes like, I don't belong here. We gotta move on, dear. That song. Escape from this afterlife.
All I remember is My Nightmare.
It's okay. So Afterlife is, if you were to ask somebody on the street, like they probably would know it. It was in a lot of video games. It was in other things and stuff. So it was a very popular song, and the drummer wrote that song.
Okay.
So their drummer was just amazing. But I think he wrote most of the songs on this album before he died. And it's just another A+ album. I think every song on there is amazing. It rides that wave where it's just like explosive, and then like comes down, and there's a really sad song and goes up again. And then at the end, there's actually a song called Fiction, which is so incredibly emotional, and the drummer sings on that. So it hits the heart a little bit. So that's one of my other favorite albums. There's Marianas Trench, Masterpiece Theater. I grew up on that one.
That's a wide range you just called out. So
yeah, it's all over the place. But I do Masterpiece Theater. This album by Marianas Trench is also, I think, is a concept album. Like in terms of, it's a concept album, but in a different way. Like it's not like every song has an important story to it, but the first and last song on that album are very like theatrical and opera, and it's really cool. So these Marianas Trench is underrated. I think like their pop stuff that's on the radio, it's whatever. It might, like, no offense, but they're very musically creative and very interesting, and they go out there and they do crazy stuff. So yeah, I would say those are I think that those four.
Okay.
Those are my albums I grew up on and my biggest influences.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell our listeners who you are. Tell us about your music and what your projects are.
My name is Nick, but my artist name is Karkar. It's just my last name. I was always called Karkar when I was growing up, so I was like, why not? I am a pop punk musician. I am releasing an EP July 26th. It's going to be on Spotify, all those streaming platforms. I'm trying to bring back that American Idiot era style pop punk. Like, I love catchy melodies. I love catchy guitars, hard-hitting guitars, earworm chants, you know what I mean? Anything that's just, that gets, it's right. You're singing in your head and you don't know why kind of thing. So I'm trying to do that. I'm doing that through my EP coming out July 26th. Like I said, we're doing a release show as well at Supermarket in Toronto. If anybody, I guess this isn't coming out till September.
Yeah. One man show, I can only edit so much.
Yeah, all good. All good. So yeah, I'll have an EP out by then. It's self-titled, so just look up Karkar. That's really what I got going on. That's my main thing.
How many tracks on the EP?
We have 6 songs.
Nice. 6
songs on there. We released 3 already. We just released one today. It's called Don't Tell Me. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, really.
Are you a sole songwriter, lyrics and music?
Yeah, so I'm a songwriter. I write the music. I produce the music as well. So I do most of it on my own. I would definitely like to have a band or some people to work with for sure. I want to learn and see how other people view or perceive music, or how they look at songs when we're songwriting and stuff. I want to understand different perspectives. But yeah, right now it's just me, and I'm just working hard writing songs and producing them and performing them when I can.
You're based out of Toronto now, right?
Based out of Toronto, just outside Toronto, in a small town. It's called Stouffville.
How's the pop punk scene of Toronto? I know nothing about the Toronto music scene.
Oh man, no, it's very limited, we'll say. Okay. It's not like, Toronto's very hip hop driven.
Okay.
Very pop. It's a big main city. There is still a punk scene and a pop punk scene, but it's not very big. And even within the music industry too, if I work with a few other artists, some pop punk, some not. But when you get into the music industry in Toronto, at least, and the more you go out to venues and stuff and shows, and you start seeing the same people around. It's not the biggest community.
I am all for you bringing back the great pop punk of the 2000s, bring that sound back.
Yeah.
It was about '07 when my interest in rock music and the quality started to wane. Somewhere we're 2007. I don't know why, but that was just,
Yeah.
I don't know, when we flipped to the alternate reality and rock music went away. But there is an absence of good rock reminiscent of that time, primed for an upswing to bring it back. I'm looking forward to your EP quite a
Thank
bit,
you.
and I'll definitely put that out on my socials when it comes out.
Sweet.
And say the individual tracks I've listened to past couple of days, excellent, love them.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I want to keep getting better. Like I write these songs and I produce them and I'm proud of them, but I'm striving for more. I'm striving for just to keep getting better. I just want to keep getting better and putting on. I want to entertain people. I just want people to enjoy the content that I have for people to listen to and come out to shows. So I'm going to keep getting better, and it's just going to be an uphill rise here.
If there's any, anyone out there that wants to collaborate with Kerr, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reach out to him or reach out to me, and I'll hook you up. I'd love to see you and your music take off. Be great.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
All right, Kerr, Nick, appreciate your time tonight. It was a pleasure to talk with you about American Idiot, and thank you for the time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was a good talk.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Music Rewind. As always, we appreciate a rating and review wherever you listen, and go to musicrewindpodcast.com for information on the show, more extras, and future episodes. So, as I always say, listen to the full album. Until next time.
A podcast from the Sidereal Media Group. Back to you, anchors.